Olá, bem-vindos e bem-vindos.
Hello, welcome everyone once again for the last time today for our last activity at the world stage on our 27th World Congress of Architects UIA 2021 Rio. We have had a very rich day. We have strolled around the Middle East. We went to Macau, to the east, we went to Macau, Jakarta, to Tokyo, and in the afternoon, we visited Sao Paulo, and we also visited Paraguay. He said it at the beginning of the talk, but now I am here to introduce the last activity of the stage today. Tomorrow, just to remind you, we're going to have several activities that are key to the Congress. We're going to have our closing. We're going to have the gold medals and other UIA medals. We will have the handover of the flag to the next edition that will be in Copenhagen in 2023. We're going to have the consolidation of the Rio Charter tomorrow at the Carta do Rio stage, which is a great legacy of this Congress. We have been building this charter through all forces of architecture in Rio, and we are building a whole knowledge base throughout these 5 months of extended Congress that we've had, and we have had Brazilian and international guests. Now we are closing the day today with a very special panel, as I mentioned today in the morning, which is kind of a similar, but that was produced by the International Union of Architects, which is by achieving design excellence with UIA. So we are trying to reach excellence. So achieving design excellence with a UIA competition. We're going to have presentations by Robert Greenwood, who is partner and managing director in Asia for Snohetta. We're going to have Nahuel Recabarren. I would like to apologize if I mispronounced the name, which is the lead architect of the Bamiyan Cultural Center in Afghanistan. And also Daniel Fraile Ortiz, who is the lead architect at Vilnius Concert Hall in Lithuania. Besides that, we're going to have a special participation of Regina Gontier, who is co-director of the International Competitions Commission at UIA, Jerzy Grosholski, who is co-director at ICC, and our UIA president, Thomas Vonier. We are going to watch this debate here, and after that we'll have no longer activities at the world stage, but I would like to remind you that we always have at the end of every day, which is the beginning of the day in Asia or Oceania, we always have the stage Dialogues with Society filled with interesting activities that have been brought by our partners, cultural activities too. And I would like to get your attention because I'm going to advise on one in particular, which is amazing. We're going to have an interactive workshop with people from Galpão Aplauso from Rio de Janeiro. We will be at 8 p.m. at the Dialogue with Society stage, and you can also participate within the Zoom link. You can see it on the website by the Congress, which is, and there you will find an article and a link to join. Galpão Aplauso is a quite interesting institution that for 27 years has been working with the concept of the peripheral areas of the city and talks about displacement. It's something that it's fortified that low-income young need to achieve. They work with low-income young from all over the country, and during the pandemic, they developed a beautiful work of rethinking interactions through the screen. It's quite touching. I was part of a test event of a rehearsal, and it's touching to rediscover or discover new ways through technology of creating art and getting in touch with such different realities. It was very beautiful. I hope you all enjoy it. It will be, as I said, at 8 p.m. Brazil time. It will be 1 a.m. here in Holland, in the Netherlands, and I'll try to participate, and this is my invitation to all of you. So we will be here with this last table. This is Achieving Design Excellence with a UIA competition.
Or good afternoon or good evening, depending on your time zone. I'm Roger Schluntz, Professor of Architecture and Dean Emeritus at the University of New Mexico in the United States. I also represent the Region 3 of the International Union of Architects on the International Competitions Commission. It's my pleasure to be the moderator of this plenary session titled Achieving Design Excellence Through Competitions. We have invited 3 notable architects whose firms have won important international design competitions endorsed by the International Competitions Commission of the UIA. But first, I would like to introduce Thomas Vonnier, FAIA, President of the UIA, to provide a brief perspective relative to the UIA and design competitions. Thomas?
Thank you, Roger, and thank you, panelists, and welcome to all of you who are watching us today. You know, 65 years ago in 1956, UNESCO adopted regulations regarding the conduct of international design competitions. And at the same time in 1956, they designated the UIA as the organization to oversee the application of those standards. This was a kind of a notable and hopeful time in history, coming, let's say, nearly a decade after a great war, and when many institutions were building. And it's notable to me that architecture held an important place in terms of human culture and heritage in the eyes of UNESCO. Since then, the UIA has assisted with many international design competitions, and we've contributed to the making of some very important buildings. You know them all: the Centre Pompidou in Paris, the Sydney Opera House, the Tokyo World Forum, the National Library of Egypt in Alexandria, and many others, some of which you'll hear about today. We've gained a lot of experience. We know a great deal about design competitions, how to run them fairly and how to run them effectively. And we know why clients like design competitions. Often they hope to obtain the best ideas they can. They're often looking for innovative designs or innovations. Often they want to get wide publicity for the building and the project itself, and sometimes they hope to give opportunity to relatively unknown architects. We also know something about what entrants to design competitions want, and that's in some respects simpler. They want clarity of mission, fairness in the execution of judging, they want excellent jurors, and they want the whole undertaking to be affordable. It all sounds simple, but it's never really very easy. Our role has many dimensions, many of them quite technical, and you'll hear something about that today. But most importantly, I think, the UIA endorsement is a guarantee of quality and integrity of the highest standards. And it also carries the endorsement in close association with UNESCO itself. Last year, the UIA and UNESCO partnered in an international conference on design competitions. And the Director General of UNESCO, Madame Audrey Azoulay, gave a wonderful address citing the common origins of our organizations, that is the UIA and UNESCO, and reinforcing the importance of our joint efforts. Only yesterday, I was in a program with the Director General for Culture, Ernesto Tone, who in his talk cited the 1956 date that I mentioned and reaffirmed the important connection UNESCO feels with the world's architects and the UIA. Most of the people who are listening in on this session are architects. And so I'm going to close by recalling an interview we had with Renzo Piano early last year. He and his partner won the design competition, a UIA competition for the Centre Pompidou in the early 1970s, late 1960s. At the time, he was, to use his words, an unknown 29-year-old architect trying to get established. There is no doubt in my mind, anyway, that his talent and great gifts would have emerged anyway. But as he himself said, if it were not for the UIA, his work and his life would never have taken the course that it has. We look forward to hearing from the distinguished panelists who are here with us today. Their work is a source of great pride and satisfaction to the UIA in a heritage and in alignment with many that have gone before. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak, Roger, and I look forward to the rest of the session.
Thank you, Thomas, sharing that very critical insight. It's now my pleasure and honor to introduce our first guest, Nahuel Recabarren, a co-founder of M2R Arquitectos, an Argentinian architectural firm that was established in 2011. His firm has received numerous national and international awards and prizes, and now has active offices in both Argentina and Spain. I want to note in particular the UIA-endorsed international competition organized by UNESCO to design the Bamiyan Cultural Center in Afghanistan. This design was selected from over 1,000 submissions representing 117 countries. The center, which I believe is currently under construction, I hope, is situated on a prominent hill with a direct view of the Bamiyan Valley of the two giant Buddha niches. SM2R has also received an honorable mention in the UIA-endorsed competition for the urban regeneration project that links the Slovenian city Nova Gorica with the Italian city of Gorizia, creating a shared central area to be known as Europe Square. Nahuel, take it away.
Thank you, Roger, and thank you, Jersey and Thomas. For me, it's really an honor to be here and to be able to share my work with you, with everybody listening, and also with all my other colleagues. Danielle and Robert are just in line for doing their presentation. So for me, it's just a great honor to be here. I wanted to start my presentation. Let me share my screen. Just by introducing my office. We are a really small team from Argentina with 3 partners, Franco Morero on the left, Manuel Martinez on the center, and me on the right. And we had just opened our office when the competition of the Bamiyan Cultural Center was launched. So it was like an amazing opportunity for us, and it was a huge adventure and a great chance to develop our approach to the built environment. We understand architecture not as the production of technical objects, but rather as a social task, centered on the creation of social and ecological processes that improve societies and environments. So, the story of the Bamiyan Cultural Center and the project began a long time before the competition, in March of 2001, when a group of religious extremists known as the Taliban took by force the city of Bamiyan in the center of Afghanistan. The attack targeted a small ethnic minority called the Hazaras because of their religious beliefs. It also targeted local Buddhist heritage that was taken by the Taliban to be heretical to Islam. The city of Bamiyan was known internationally mainly because it was home to the largest standing Buddha statues at the time. These statues were built around the 5th and 6th centuries and were one of the main examples of the Gandhara Greco-Buddhist art that was developed in Afghanistan during that period. The massive structures were 37 and 55 meters tall, which is a size comparable to the Statue of Liberty. And these statues, together with a set of smaller statues and and different caves form a larger Buddhist monastery completely excavated on the cliffs of a sandstone mountain. This is a video of the statues before the attack. You can see the sense of their scale. And this is the moment of their destruction. By destroying the statues, the Taliban, together with Al-Qaeda, were experimenting with a technique of cruel and spectacular terrorist attacks that seek highly symbolic and mediatic effects. The attacks on Bamiyan were the immediate precursor of the attacks on September 11 on the United States. The series of events that followed these tragic days led to the invasion of Afghanistan by the American government and to the fall of the Taliban regime. Once the Taliban were out of power and moderate stability was achieved, a series of initiatives were put in place to rebuild the country and to protect the local heritage. The cultural landscape and archaeological remains of the Bamiyan Valley were declared World Heritage in 2003, and in 2015, UNESCO, together with the International Union of Architects, the government of Afghanistan, and the government of Korea, launched an international competition for a cultural center to safeguard the local heritage and to help rebuild the cultural ties between the different ethnic groups coexisting in the area. The site proposed for the project was in a promontory directly in front of the Buddha Cliff. So the site was incredibly magnificent, but at the same time, tremendously challenging, because we have to build something that was meaningful, but at the same time that it didn't affect negatively the landscape of the World Heritage Site. So the first decision we took was that instead of creating a new object that would impose itself into the landscape, we would make a moment of absolute silence, where architecture would vanish into the ground, to create a public space. To achieve this, we proposed to carve the cultural center into the earth. By making the building disappear, we opened the views and created a system of terraces and spaces on top of the building. These terraces were part of a larger park proposed that we called the Buddha Gardens, that we intended to make as a meeting place for the local population and the visitors. We thought that making a park could be a key contribution to the city, given the absolute lack of safe public spaces in Afghanistan. To carry on this initial decision, we tried to reinterpret the construction technique of the Buddhist monastery and use them to define our proposal. We decided to make the spaces of the cultural center voids inside of the earth. This strategy also allowed us to respond to the harsh climate of Bamiyan. Since it's extremely dry, temperatures in the sun vary greatly during the day and throughout the year. Even if Bamiyan is quite pleasant in summer, in winter it reaches temperatures of under 25 degrees, and the whole valley gets completely covered by snow. By burying the buildings in the ground, we took advantage of the thermal inertia of the soil, getting a stable warm temperature during the whole year with minimal energy consumption. This was key in Afghanistan since the city of Bamiyan has no electrical grid and the buildings should be self-sustaining. To organize the project, we divided it into 3 buildings: an exhibition and performance building, the one on the right, an education building, the one on the left, and an administrative building, the one on the back. By dividing the building in this way, we created a system of intermediate spaces like an amphitheater, piazzas, terraces, a water mirror, a ramp. So what we wanted to do was to make what would otherwise would have been an isolated building inside of a plot. We wanted to turn it into a small urban complex. where the most important part, the key element, was the public space that was left in between the buildings. The interior spaces of the Cultural Center were defined as extractions of poor volumes inside of the mass of the building. These spaces are extremely simple and modest. These are pictures from the construction site like 1 month ago. The floors, walls, and ceilings are all made with the same material, a local stone called tawa. We wanted this space to be extremely calm, using light and geometry as the only element that define the quality of the spaces. For the exhibition area of the building, we proposed to go against the current orthodoxy regarding museography, and instead of making white boxes closer to the exterior that would present art as and cultural artifacts as timeless objects completely disconnected from the place they are from, we proposed rooms that were not only open to the outside, but that made context a fundamental part of the space itself. Each exhibition room is shaped to frame the empty Buddha niches that are in front of and the rest of the body. In this way, we intend the building to put in contact the objects exhibited inside of it with the local culture that produced them. The cultural building also has a performance hall, especially equipped for music and dance, which were forbidden during the Taliban regime. And the Cultural Center also have a tea house that overlooks the Bamiyan Valley and connects to the exterior spaces, giving life to these spaces, and some research areas for safekeeping the cultural artifacts that would be stored there. The other two parts of the complex, the education building and the administration building, are organized and conceived in similar ways. Each building is structured around long street-like spaces meant to have informal uses. These streets were thought as unprogrammed spaces that can be spontaneously used for exhibitions, events, performances, or any other thing or event that might happen. All the interior spaces of the Cultural Center are shaped in precise ways to control the lighting conditions and to allow for a variety of programs, like classrooms, workshop areas, library spaces, and even prayer spaces. A few pictures from the interior and from the prayer room. And I wanted to conclude just simply telling you that we are very happy because the Cultural Center is intended to be open by the end of the year. So we are very hopeful that in current times of crisis, when internal fighting is intensifying in Afghanistan since American troops are leaving, opening a building can be a modest contribution to the protection of culture and to foster community building in a country that really needs to rebuild its cultural ties and its social relations with the population. So thank you very much for listening to me.
Well, and thank you, Nahuel. Very interesting presentation, a very difficult situation, I'm sure. We wish you and the project every success going forward. Our second speaker is Danielle Fraile, a founding partner of Recabarren Architects, established in 1999. The firm is based in Spain, but has branches and partnerships in Dubai, Doha, Riyadh, Equatorial Guinea, Ivory Coast, and now, quite recently, Lithuania. The firm has received prizes in numerous international competitions, including the first prize for the National Concert Hall in Vilnius, Lithuania, this in 2019. The winning design was selected from nearly 250 entries spanning the globe. The building and 2 concert halls, and the firm proposed that the different elements be interconnected by an open ground floor green corridor. The brief for the 2 concert halls instructed that the larger concert hall accommodate 1,700 people and the smaller hall seat 500. So With that, Danielle, take it away.
Okay, let me share my screen. 1 second, please. Okay. I mean, before I start, of course, I mean, thank you very much. The lecture that you gave, Nahuel, was really interesting. I would like also to thank the authorities for this international event of the International Union of Architects, and for giving us the opportunity to present this project. Okay. As we heard, I mean, we are a Spanish practice that we work abroad due to the crisis that started in around 2008 in Spain, and now we are working much more abroad than in Spain. A couple of years ago, we won the competition to build the new National Concert Hall in Vilnius, Lithuania, and this competition was organized by the International Union of Architects. I mean, the first thing I would like to say and to enhance is that what's a good competition, what it is, because it's something that is, I mean, is sometimes you find a lot of competitions and it's difficult to select the one. And but an anonymous competition with a quality jury and attractive financial compensation is capable of mobilizing the architectural community in an extraordinary way. It is difficult for any urban response to the problems posed to escape when there is a high level of participation, and that is undoubtedly the best contribution when seeking the greatest benefit for society and the best architectural design. The International Union of Architects stands for impartiality, quality in judgment, and powerful support in the formal development of the project. Why was it Vilnius a good competition? I mean, first of all, because the client, it was in line with the Architect Association of Lithuania. And this is something really important, I mean, to be part of the architectural community. Of course, the endorsement of the UIA give the means to succeed. The jury is, of course, really important because they normally, I mean, you need to find architects that normally participate in this type of competitions, because otherwise it's quite difficult to transmit and to give the rules also to select the winning proposal. Timetable, of course. I mean, normally timetable is squeezed in competitions, but in this case, when the UIA is there, I mean, we had like 4 months. Then you have time to start to deal with the project, to change your ideas, to reflect, and then to submit it. And this is something really important. Of course, the submission must be logical, and it was interesting that the client decided to also to submit a model of the project that was like an incredible opportunity for the jury to understand not only the images but the real dimension of the buildings. This is something that we always try to encourage, because now the world is plenty of images, and images can be whatever, and normally most of them are fake. But at the end, this type of models, I mean, don't lie. You just see the dimensions, you see how they fit in the neighborhood. You understand probably the project. Of course, the price is important, because normally you don't win competitions, and it's something that help us with the development of many other competitions, because normally we do around 10 competitions a year, and this is something that you know, helps. And the most important thing, of course, is the contract. I mean, after the winning a competition, the most important thing is to do the project. I mean, it looks like it's something logical, and it will be in continuity with the project, but sometimes projects stops. You don't know why. One interesting and really important thing that UIA was supporting is that they normally only negotiate with the winner proposal, because there are other projects, that other competitions that arrive into a kind of an economical internal competition as well between the three first positions, and at the end this is not logical, because if there's one selection of a first prize, that will be the one that to be done. So that was really supporting in terms for the project, just that the client only negotiated with us. Despite the situation of the COVID, we were exactly in the middle of the COVID during the negotiations, we finally achieved to sign the contract like 1 year ago, around December, and we are now exactly in the process of developing the project. I'm going to show now a few images of the project as it is right now, and some of the initial ideas that defined the building itself. This is the area in Vilnius where it's located, the place. It's exactly in the middle, in an area where it was erected before the old House of the Nation, or Parliament, we can say so, that was going to be demolished. And the idea was to create at the top of that hill, that area, because it's a nice hill in the middle of Vilnius, to create there like an auditorium and a music complex, because it was not only an auditorium, there are several other venues inside. The most important thing was for us to understand the place, and this is what really defines a winning project, is the urban solution. How do you deal with the environment? How do you deal with the city? How do you cope with all the external facts? And what we understood immediately is that the building itself was between two parks. It was a park at the right side is called Taurus Hill Park, and there was like another park behind called Evangelical Old Cemetery Gardens. The idea was to connect those parks together. So, but the problem is that the building itself was so big, and we were frightened with the idea that it will block the view. So we just split the building in three bodies, trying to allow the views to go through the buildings between them. This idea was, once we get that idea, because it was like the third or the fourth project that we started at this point in this competition, but when we saw this, we were sure that this was a clever solution. But the point was how to connect the park, the Evangelical Park, with the Taurus Hill Park. Then is when we decided just to create a continuous roof, a roof garden that gives continuity to the back part, to the back park, and then connected to the Taurus Hill Park. I mean, just doing this, we solved all the back of house program that was implemented in this area, and then we leave the front of house just for the main venues. In the back part of the building, we just introduce several courtyards to introduce the light inside the back of house, inside the building. The competition proposal was clear and was split in three pieces, because we had like three major areas. There are three major venues. Was the main hall, the small hall, and the Hall of the Nation, that is the small piece here at the right part. This area was intended to be, the Hall of the Nation was intended to be like a conference room as well. So in fact, the three elements were like performance venues. But during the development, I mean, during the negotiation of the competition, the client decided to add a fourth element, like in a way of a rehearsal hall. Then we consider that this building needed to have the same height than the initial building, that the main building, this one here. So we just produced a new element, just trying to foster all the community together and to create like this roof garden in a way that everything is connected. now we can have like a quick tour throughout the complex. And the idea is that the building is surrounded by glass because the position is really an icon of the city. This area is like 25 meters above the road. And then from there, that point, you can really see all the perimeter, all the areas from Vilnius. The building is designed in a clear way because this is so important in architectural competitions to be clear in your decisions. And we have like the halls that are like stone gems inside these glazed bodies. The perimeter of the complex is trying to deal with the urban area. This is the Lutheran Park, how it will be connected, and then will be the roof garden that creates continuity with the Lutheran's garden. The idea is something that we can really see from this point because you can see these openings that connect directly to the new city that in Vilnius that is located exactly at that position. So it will be like a nice park extension from Lutheran's garden towards the slopes of the hill. I mean, the building, of course, has several other entrances and areas, but I want to focus on the envelope because the envelope, once you solve the issue about the urban fact, then you need to design something that creates continuity with the history. Then we were working with these sawdust elements that are typical of the area, and we understood that these structures that are enclosing like an internal space inside could be part of the geometry of the building. So then we were trying to implement this idea of lines in the facade, and we create the complex exactly as bodies, separate bodies that have the heart inside and the glass perimeter outside. Of course, the building itself is something that will be changing during the day, and at the night it will be like one icon because it will shine in the performances, and it will be really a nice observation point in the city. Of course, the night views is a really important part of the project, and it will be developed with trying to create color games in the facade and create this idea of changing from cold to warmer whites. Inside the building, it will be clean, neat, something just trying to avoid any extra element that interfere with the space. Floating slabs that are connected to the halls, and continuous lobbies that create extensions towards the outside. The main hall, it's a hall that gives us continuity with the outside, as we understand that there are these lines that are playing again with the idea of these sawdust elements. So we could be in the same position that outside. We're surrounded by these lines of diagonals that works in the same way outside. Of course, the images during performances will create new audiovisual visions and experiences to the people. The small hall is it's a multi-purpose area of we can call it like a black box, and it can be adapted until even 900 spectators. Normally, it was designed in the competition for 500, but in a standing position, it will be around 900 spectators. It is Italian theater. We have areas just, for enjoy the city due to the fact that it is in a really high position. A new observation deck will be implemented in the top part of the small hall. The Hall of the Nation, as I said, it is like a conference hall, and but it will be also possible to have exhibitions and other type of presentation of events and press conference and so on. We have also drafted, due to the idea of the client in the process, a new exhibition space below this Hall of the Nation. And we have finished with this rehearsal hall that needs to have the same experience than the main hall in terms of height and in terms of acoustical quality. And this is something that we consider that was so important to create a venue with the same quality. And this is now how we are. And I hope that in 3 years or in 4 years that we will see the building finish and as nice as it is. Okay, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Danielle. That's really a magnificent project. I wish we all had clients like you seem to have with this one. Maybe we can have a UIA conference there in 5 years.
Okay.
Our third speaker is Robert Greenwood, partner of Snohetta. This internationally acclaimed firm undertook its first project, beginning project work as a result of a design competition in 1989 for the design of the National Library in Alexandria, Egypt. Many of you were familiar with this building, at least the pictures of it. The Snohetta firm has now grown since those early days, now employing over 250 people, maybe 270, representing 30 different nationalities with offices in several countries, including Norway and the United States. Robert has been deeply involved in all design aspects, projects, and competitions at Snohetta, and is the design director responsible for the firm's international work. Robert, the floor is now yours.
Thank you, Roger. Great pleasure to talk to you all today and to see such wonderful projects. Taking part in a competition is always fun. Winning a competition is amazing, and congratulations to you both. It doesn't happen every time. I think we have a statistic of how many times we take part in a competition and how many times we win, and I can assure you we lose very many more times than we win. But fortunately, if we turn the clock back to '89, we actually won, and it was the first competition we took part in, and that was really quite a fantastic moment. Most architects, they build up their practices by doing small buildings, and they get to a little bit bigger buildings, and when they get to be old men or women, they do the large buildings. So we started with the first building we did, which was the biggest building you could imagine, the most prestigious in the world. So it was really an amazing opportunity. And it's really the sort of opportunity that only comes through this sort of competition format. In '89, this was an open architectural competition. So anyone who was an architect could take part. There were over 600 entries, and it's a lottery, of course. You've got to be lucky to win, but it's an opportunity for young architects who've not done anything before to win projects, and that was the case with Snohetta. So we really hadn't won. We hadn't built anything. There was not really a company. It wasn't really formatted or founded properly before the competition. There was just a group of young architects straight out of school who took part in this first competition that turned up and happened to win it. I'm going to share my screen. I'll show you some of the images I put together. I think you can see it now. So, as you said, Roger, Snohetta didn't exist before '89. It's actually a mountain, so we took the name from a mountain, which is a pretty smart idea. But at that time, we were 5 or 6 people straight out of school. I joined a little bit later, I tell you that now. And hadn't built a single building. Now we are, as you said, 250 architects around the world, representing all sorts of different disciplines. So it's really taken off from this moment here. But I have to say that without this sort of competition, without the support of the UIA, of course, who endorsed the competition, UNESCO, who funded the competition, and the decision to do a anonymous open competition, this building would for sure not be here now. I don't think it would be possible to put forward a design like this and get it built if you didn't do it in this way. So I think a lot of credit to the UIA, a lot of credit to UNESCO, and an awful lot of credit to the organizing committee in Egypt who stood behind this project and followed it all the way through. So this is the final project. You can see it built. I'm sure you all know it, so I won't talk too much about the building. This is the stone south facing the rest of Africa. Solid, no windows, all carved out of granite. And on the other side, the big roof. It was opened, I have to tell you, in 2002. So we took part in the competition in 1989. So you can do your own maths. And Daniel, I do really hope that your building is finished in 4 years' time. This was the start of a 13-year marathon for us. But marathon isn't the right word. A 13-year fairy tale, really. But it took a long time. So those young students who won the competition in '89, well, you'll see pictures of them in a minute. They had long hair and they had holes in their jeans. By the time this thing was finished, they didn't have any hair left, and they were quite old people. So architecture takes time, especially this sort of building. Just our aerial view of Alexandria, the building is on the top right there. It's a circle. It's a wonderful city. If you ever get the chance to go to Alexandria, I can recommend it deeply. It's got fantastic multicultural heritage. It's one of the pearls of the Mediterranean. And you can go see the library. It sits in the harbor like no other building in the city at all, but it has become this landmark really for the city. But I'll take you back to 1989 and talk a little bit around what happened then. So this is Snohetta in 1989. I could show you a picture of our main office, which is in Oslo now, which is quite a lot different to this. This was up, as you can see, in a loft above an old building in Oslo. And these are the architects. Most of them had just come straight out of school. You can tell it's in the 80s by just looking at the fashion and the clothes. And you can tell there wasn't an awful lot of money kicking around at the moment. It's also quite interesting to look at some of the equipment in an architectural office in '89. There's some dubious looking cabling, but it doesn't really attach to very much more than a transistor radio. I think in the front here is something called a telefax machine. You might have heard of that. Otherwise, there are no machines. There's some drafting machines, you know, T-squares. You draw on paper with, and I have to tell you that the competition for the library was drawn on paper with pen and ink by hand, no computers involved. And in front here you see an old school telephone, and that's Eyvind, who's sort of pretending that this is the organizing committee who's just called him and they've won the competition. Big shock for these people in Oslo. I think an even bigger shock for the organizing committee when they invited us down to Paris to get the award. And now you really can see that it's 1980s and just study the fashion. It's quite amazing. So on the edge here on the right, we have a representative from the organizing committee in Egypt, and then on the left, the representative from UNESCO, who were really funding and running the competition. It was a well-run competition. The brief was really very well put together. and endorsed by UIA. That was really important. So everything was done in a very orderly fashion. That unfortunately is pretty much where it stopped. And often competitions, you think the competition is like the be all and end all, it's the start of everything. For us, the competition was really finished, and that's where the work really started. It got really quite difficult. Our guys are the 5 in the middle here with the wonderful suits, and they look really young. So with us still now in the mid, the short guy in the middle, that's Craig Dykers. He's our partner in New York. And then the guy with the flowers, he looks like he's 16 years old. That's Kjetil Thorsen, who's our partner in Oslo. They're still with us, founding partners. So I think the organizing committee got a real shock because, you know, didn't know who they were getting, and these guys stand up. And what have they built before? Absolutely nothing. Great credit, particularly to the Egyptians. I think they stuck with us. They never doubted it. They never questioned the winning team. They never tried to change the design. Everything, they always stuck with us through many years when there wasn't a project. So we started in '89. UNESCO had funded the competition, but they had not funded anything more than that. So it was a project without a budget. We had a site given by the Mubarak, but we had no budget. So we then spent actually a period of 4 years, really through to 1993, where there was no funding for the project. We had no money whatsoever. We got some money from winning the competition. We got some small amounts of funding from, oh, by the way, this is quite a historical item. It's part of our submission. It's something called a VHS film, which you probably haven't heard of before, and you certainly don't have a player for, but this was our submission on this. It's the version anglais I'm reading now, and it was 13 minutes and 20 seconds long. What you would now call our multimedia presentation. And you can see on the bottom here our logo. Well, it was sort of hand drawn. We've now gone through our branding department and done it really nice and branded. But that was the original hand drawn Snohetta logo. But this first 4 years was no money. We got a little bit of funding from the Norwegian government to try and keep us going and keep the project going, to do some small studies. In the meantime, the second prize winner from a third-party country had got funding from their country to fund the whole design. So quite a lot of pressure from outside parties to try and usurp our position. But as I said, the Egyptians were incredibly loyal to the competition, loyal to the contract they signed when they started the competition, and stuck with us all the way through. We finally did manage to negotiate a contract in 2003 and started the design work seriously and could build up a team. The project, in the meantime, had gotten funded, and that was a whole story in itself. This is from 1999, I think, in Aswan, and it was a big funding conference that the Egyptian government and UNESCO organized. And all of the leaders of the world were invited to Aswan, all the Gulf leaders, of course, to talk about this wonderful world cultural project and to give money to the project. So the first man to give money was Sheikh Zayed. He's the one in the front here with the turban from the UAE. He was pretty smart, because if you're the first to give money, you don't have to give so much money. You put it on the table. The last person to put money on the table has to put the most on the table. And in this case, it was Saddam Hussein. He wanted to be seen as the leader of culture in the Arab world. He put the most money down on the table. And so 12 years later, at the inauguration, 2002, he got the best seat. That was 6 months before he was deposed. But everyone was here. This is François Mitterrand in the middle, Hosni and Suzanne Mubarak, who were the sponsors of the project. Suzanne became ultimately the patron of the project. And obviously it didn't go too well for many of the people in this picture, but quite a heroic time. And that's the declaration they made when they gave the money. So you'll find all the signatures here. Hussein Zayed, Francois Mitterrand on the French version to the right. And they funded really about half of the project. So by that time, we then had enough money to do the design, dig the foundations, and start the building. And the rest of the money came from the Egyptian state. So, well, by that time, we were really ready to go. So we moved down to, we moved the whole office just about down to Cairo in Egypt to do the design. You know, it was all part of a fairy tale. We come straight out of school, didn't have an office, won this amazing competition in this far off land in Egypt. So we really wanted to go the whole fairy tale all the way out and move everyone down to Cairo to set up an office in Cairo to design the building. We made a consortium with Hamza Associates in Cairo to undertake the whole design. So we managed to negotiate the contract, not just for the design, but for the whole construction and supervision of the project. So this is our team with our Egyptian compatriots, and a wonderful time really down in Cairo. I'm sure if we had just stayed in Norway and done the work from there, we would have saved an awful lot of money and an awful lot of time, but it wouldn't have been half as much fun. A lot of aspects about this project that were really quite amazing, and there's hundreds of stories. I won't tell them all, but this is the stone wall. You saw the stone wall in the first picture. It's 5,000 square meters of solid stone, and this stone is split straight out of the quarry. So it's about ½ meter thick, and then it's hand carved with all these hieroglyphs and writings of the history of the world. I don't think anyone really believed that we were going to build that wall, except us, probably. So this is an artist, Norwegian artist, Christian Plistad, who we collaborated with to work out a lot of the technical details of the carving that then the Egyptians took over and did. We worked with an Egyptian professor of Paleology, I think it's called, the histories of writing, just to get it right, because we had to have all these letters, all these texts, all these hieroglyphs on the wall, and they had to be correct. And they didn't want to have any stories here. You know, we didn't want to tell any messages like Robert is good or something like that, religious or political messages to anybody. So it just had to be the signs, the writing, the calligraphy, and no hidden messages. There's quite a lot of work with our artists and our friends in the paleontology department. And these are some of them. I'm not quite sure from which part of the world these come from. Oh, right, top right there, that's Norwegian medieval Viking runes. I know that one. And that's the stone, as I said, is split out of the quarry. We had to actually go and find a quarry in Upper Egypt where we could get this amount of stone out of it. And to get that natural texture, you've got to split it out with iron wedges. You can't use saws or dynamite. So we had to go back to the old techniques of how you get stone out of the quarry. And then the big roof, which originally from the competition had its inspiration from what was the most expensive computer chip you could buy in 1989. I think computer chips now look very different. So it's a bit of a strange story. But this is the roof. It's really a high technology roof at that time. It's honeycomb-based aluminum composite panels, really state-of-the-art, had to be imported. Most of the building is not. Most of the building is just the sort of building you can make in Egypt out of stone and concrete at that time. But this had to be imported. We had to get an export license to bring that sort of material into Egypt. It was really quite pioneering just to get this building built. But I have to say that I think it stands as a landmark, certainly in Egypt, of what you can do in Egypt, how good and how high quality a building you really can make in Egypt. And I think we're very proud of that. The interior is a big landscape. There's about 9 levels, they all terrace down. Starts off 7 floors above the sea, and it goes down 4 floors, 4 basement floors underneath the sea level. So it's this big plane, as you know, that breaks through the horizon, goes from the future at the top to the past. somewhere down at the bottom. It's a fantastic room. It's the most amazing room I've ever been in. It's so big and it feels so generous that when you go into the room, it's like you're going out into the forest. You're not inside anything. And as I said, it took 13 years to build. So this is from the inauguration 2002. Some things take time. And the building has been interesting to follow, I think, in the years that have passed since. So this is just some of the events in the Arab Spring where the whole plaza in front of the building itself became a bit of a rallying point for many people there. And I don't have that picture here right now, but when the protests were at their worst and a lot of looting was taking place, the employees actually made a human ring around the building to protect it from any looting. Really quite fantastic. I actually include this letter right at the end because it's a letter to us from Dr. Ismail Saragat-Din, the chief librarian at the time. And it simply says, he's confirming we did the work from the first of the design to the final supervision, and that the services were done in perfectly full accordance with all required international standards, professionally correct in every manner. I don't think it gets much better than this. When you spend 13 years putting up a building, and at the end you get a letter saying you did a great job. As an architect, it doesn't get much better. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Robert. You and Nahuel and Danielle, I think all three of you have demonstrated combinations of the design talent, inspiration, faith, and perseverance in the fine works that you're doing. Really quite extraordinary, exquisite. So thank you, the three of you. We have a little bit of time. If any of the three of you would like to make a short comment or a quick question of the other two panelists, we could entertain that now before we have the wrap up.
I just wanted to congratulate Daniel and Robert for the amazing projects. And I just was wondering how Robert could manage to keep the passion and the engagement with a project that took so much time. So for me, it's like an amazing that even if you win the competition, you need to keep pushing and working. And I think that the only framework in which you can have that kind of energy and support from the government is through a public competition. So I congratulate the UIA for their work, but I also wanted to know how did Roger manage to get all the conviction to keep on going through the project up to finish after so many years.
Yeah, I mean, time, if you told us, I think right at the start that it was going to take 13 years, I think we might have given up then and there. Of course, you don't know that at that point. But it's always, you know, the excitement of winning, you know, that is so great. And you really want to get this thing built, and one thing leads to another. I think the most difficult point was for sure the early years when the project wasn't funded, when there was no clear mandate to build it, and you really thought this could disappear any moment, you know. As soon as we had a contract, as soon as we knew there was money to build the building, then it was really just the everyday problems of getting a building built. We all know that. But that early period when the project isn't secured, it's very difficult. And that's when a competition is at its most vulnerable. So, you know, I think probably the competition you've been part in, and Daniel too, have been better organized in that sense, that the framework for the project already existed. And I think that's really important, because otherwise it's so easy to lose it.
I mean, there's something, Nahuel, I mean, I just wanted to add, I mean, just following this comment from Robert. I mean, it's really important nowadays to have the UIA behind the scene, because it will really help to not only from us, just supporting us, but also for the client, because the client itself needs to report the project towards the city. And the best way of doing that is just saying, okay, I mean, we've been supported by the International Union of Architects, the one that developed this project, that project, that project. So it's easy for them just to work with that, because we've been developing several projects. We won, I remember in 2008, we won 4 projects of architecture. We didn't build any of them. I mean, it was just because some of them, there was no funds, some of them when a crisis arrives. And I mean, it was easy to escape from the commitment. But I mean, in these cases, it's amazing. We participate some years ago with a project with also with International Union of Architects in Morocco and in Fez to renovate the Medina of Fez. We finalized, I don't remember, shortlisted, and but the winning proposal is done. I mean, and you see that the projects are built, and this is amazing. And this is the way. I mean, because I mean, we are also maybe here in Spain, we have nowadays a little bit of lack of in terms of competition projects, because not all of them are guided by in the right way. So you have this type of design and build and so on are difficult to split from the contractor. I mean, the way of doing is exactly this one. It's exactly the rules that the International Union of Architects is leading. That's it. There's no other way.
Yeah, just a comment on what you just said, Daniel. For me, that is the key. The thing that it's an open competition. It even allows people from a completely different country to enter a competition and to have the support of everything, and also the commitment from the local authorities. Because once you have an open competition and everybody is aware of what is happening and the whole process and who won, there's a very deep commitment with the project, and it's not easy to back out of it. Even if it was like some crazy young guys from Norway that won the competition, you need to keep your commitment with that project. And I think that in the end, that is what makes good architecture. The commitment to ideas over and good quality projects over the political pressures, the political connections between already known architects. That is why Renzo Piano could build what he built in Paris, how Snohetta could start a practice that is quite amazing and it's completely global. And I think like the work you were mentioning, Daniel, your work is amazing, but also you're starting to go ahead with your work in other countries. Maybe in Spain it's a bit tough right now, but having this chance for an open competition where who wants just won because it's the best project or the one that the jury thought it was the best is quite an amazing and a very fair framework for doing competitions and works in architecture.
Yep.
Well, thank you. Really excellent presentations. I'm personally in awe of all 3 of you and wish I were younger, could start over. I'd enter more competitions. I want to ask our co-director of the International Competitions Commission to say a few closing remarks. So I'm going to turn it over now to Jerzy Grochalecki of Poland. Please go ahead, Jerzy.
Thank you, Roger, for introduction me. First of all, I would like to congratulate all 3 panelists because of their fight for the quality of their projects gave the hope that the next examples with the UIA competition also will bring the new value to the society. It's the main goal of our architects' work to give something to the people. And I'm sure that in those cases, you achieve the full satisfaction of your work, but it will be done with the help of the competition as a procedure. Thank you and congratulations again. It's very difficult to give the closing remarks after so fantastic history you gave to the audience. And I am sure that especially in the case when you start as a younger group of architects, it will be also the power for our young colleagues to be present in competitions procedures anywhere the competitions are organizing for the help to the society to the better life. The value of design competition, it's a short presentation of ICC, International Competition Commission. I will do it in name of Regina Gontier and myself. Regina Gontier is co-director, as I am. He's from Swiss, I am from Poland, and thanks. Let's allow me to thank our colleagues from our commission, because during this period we tried to work hard on the competition as I said, as a procedure which will bring something new, something additional value. And I would like to say that written in 1956 and revisited in 1978, the UNESCO Standard Regulation for International Competition in Architecture and Town Planning remain a global reference for design competition. They are based on the main tenets of transparency, equal treatment, and non-discrimination, and guarantee professional evaluation under anonymity, as well as the protection of authors' rights. The UIA Competition Guide for Design Competition in Architecture and Related Fields, developed in our commission in 2016, includes updated best practice recommendation for the implementation of the UNESCO regulation. With a handful of UIA-endorsed competition launched every year, the goal is to set high standards, advocate best practice worldwide, and promote design quality. The UIA is proud of the successful UIA-endorsed competition, which led to the construction of the buildings such as Sydney Opera House, Australia, the Centre Pompidou, France, and the Library of Alexandria, Egypt. Exceptional projects and extraordinary solutions can lead to innovation and become important architecture references. Competition should not be organized only for prestigious pilot projects. They are the best tool for contributing the wide-ranging design quality in order to improve the quality of the built environment. Design competition can only achieve their objectives if their conditions are fair. Competition must be fair in their essence, providing equitable conditions for the competition and the subsequent contract between the client and the winner. Every competitor undertakes a considerable intellectual, creative, and economic effort in the hopes of winning and realizing the project, or at least receiving the prize or special mention that can be used as a reference. The competition organizer and the jury therefore have obligation and responsibilities towards the competitors. In principle, design competition should be open in order to promote new talents. They should avoid excessive requirements and remain accessible and affordable for all. For young architects, a successful design competition provides an excellent basis for starting their practices. Competition organizers are therefore asked to trust the professional capacity of the competitors in general and the authors who proved their competence by achieving the best solution in particular. The UIA supports international design competition conducted in accordance with the UNESCO regulation because they uphold the highest cultural and artistic values and are more likely to produce architecture of distinction. The UIA promotes international design competitions open to professionals from all countries without restriction and recommends open procedures because they offer an enhanced opportunity for the emergence of innovative ideas. Following the UIA's goals, endorsed competition respect the holistic, culture-centered and interdisciplinary approach aligned with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Endorsement by the UIA is an assessment of conformity to UNESCO regulation and the UIA best practice recommendation. It is a guarantee of fair conduct of the competition with equitable conditions for competitors and the winner. UIA endorsement is thus a quality level. Thank you again. Thank you, Roger, for moderating of this meeting. And I hope that the presented examples give all of architects, especially the younger colleagues, the power to use these tools as the beginning of their professional career. I wish all of you I address this sentence to younger colleagues that the similar successes, and I hope that the competition culture will extend around the globe and bring the new value for the society. Thank you, Thomas, for opening remarks, and thank you all three panelists with fantastic presentation of your experience and your fight for the quality. It is the essence of our profession. Give something to the people. Thank you, all of you. Thank you, Roger.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.